Hi there. A couple of years ago, well, actually quite a few years ago now, I did a manual for a beginner's photography course that I ran. Well, it was a one-day workshop actually, for a small art group in a small community in Newfoundland. In the introduction to that article, I pointed out the fact, because of course they were artists, most of them were painters, I pointed out the fact that the major difference between photography and painting is that painting is very much an additive process. You start out with a blank canvas. Onto that canvas, you layer colors, you put objects, you decide what is going to be on that canvas. It's adding to that canvas. If you want a really extreme version, just go find a Bob Ross video somewhere and watch him do a landscape painting in 20 minutes. But the fact is that even though he's very quick and his results are, some people question them, the point is that he has, in those 20 minutes, created something that started out blank and was built on. Now, what of photography? Photography has sort of the opposite dilemma. Unless you have total control over your environment, in photography, you are staring at a very messy scene. You're staring at a scene with many elements in it. Your brain will tend to fuzz out the things that aren't important, but your camera can't do that. The result is that when you look at a scene, it is a subtractive process. You have to move around. You have to work that scene in order to get your subject in the best possible light. I mean that both literally and figuratively. You have to avoid the trash can that's over in the corner. You have to avoid the thing that's growing out of the person's head, like this poster is growing out of my head right now. You have to avoid these things. So you are working very hard to get the best possible view. But you're doing it by trying to eliminate things that are in that frame rather than adding them. So it's subtractive. Now, that comes to the second point. When I reposted this as an article, as just a posting on Facebook in my photography club's group, I ended up with an interesting comment. Somebody said, maybe you want to expand that and talk about the fact that some people consider a photograph as being taken, while others really see it as being built. So are your photographs taken, or are they built? Well, then we have to go back to one of my earlier videos. In one of my earlier videos, I talked about the proliferation of photography. The fact that some people look at this as a photographic golden age because of the amount, the quantity of images that are being created. And I question the quality of some of these images because many of them were created with little or no thought behind them, and as a result they sort of appear and disappear with a very short viewing lifespan, if you like. Well, those are the taken images. Those are the pictures that we just take. However, if you see yourself as a photographer, I think you actually do build your image. Because here's the scenario. You see a scene. Now, whether it's a subject or a landscape or a portrait or a picture of your favorite automobile, I mean, whatever. You look at it. On first glance, you are likely to grab your camera and take what I will call a reference shot. That's a shot where you just do a snapshot and you look at the result. And you say, okay, how can I improve this? Then you start working the scene. Now, here is where photographers who use prime lenses often have a slight advantage. And their slight advantage comes from the fact that in order to get a different point of view, they must physically move around. And by physically moving around, you tend to see more interesting views of your subject. Whereas the person who is using a zoom lens will sometimes, not always, good photographers don't do this, will tend to stand in one spot and just zoom in and out to try and change the image simply by changing the focal length. So beware of that. So you're working the scene. So what are you looking for? Well, you're looking for good light. Do you have to wait for that good light? Is it one of these days where the clouds are going by and you either want the cloud or you want the sunlight, so you have to wait for the right moment? Is it a case that you see it and you say, wow, wouldn't this look good during sunrise? So you have to come back at a different time. You might say, oh, I don't really have the equipment here, the gear here, the lens I have is not wide enough. I can't get what I want here. So you may have to come back later. You may have to make a second trip. Maybe you can't get back far enough to get into this frame what you want. So you're working the scene. After you've taken the photograph and you've decided which one you like of the many that you may have taken, your job now is to make that image that the camera produced look like what your brain saw. In other words, you had some pre-visualization, and that's a word that you will find a lot in the work of people like Ansel Adams. You pre-visualized what you wanted this scene to look like. Now you see what the camera has produced, and you may have varied different things, tried a few different things, but you still didn't get exactly what you wanted. So now this is where post-processing come in. And I don't mean major post-processing, I mean minor things. Adjusting the color, adjusting the white balance, maybe adjusting the sharpness. Little things that will make a difference to your image. So you're still working that image. Finally, when that image is finally ready, and it doesn't matter if you just post it on social media or if you make a 20 by 30 canvas to go on your wall. By that point, you have put a significant amount of effort and implied significant skills to create that image. You built an image. You didn't just take a picture. So guys, I don't have much else to say today. I just wanted to get that point across because so many people tend to, I guess, belittle the work of photographers, of good photographers, because they see good pictures from people who just take snapshots. Luck will cause anyone who points a phone camera at something. Luck will cause an occasional brilliant effect. However, the person who takes that phone and takes the time to actually build an image, their work is just as valid as somebody who's walking out there with a professional DSLR. The difference is the work involved. And like I said, sometimes photographers are looked down on as just being snap shooters. But that's usually by people who've gotten lucky once, or who have taken a lot of pictures of cats, which get lots of likes on Facebook. Well, enough for now. If you like this video, give me a like. If you want to see more of my videos, please subscribe. And of course, if you think somebody will get something from this particular video, by all means share it. And bye for now.